So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths. In this video we'll be doing the AQA GCSE Maths June 2018 Higher Paper 2, which is a calculated paper. Now as always, if you've not got access to the paper, I'll include a link to it in the description below, and I strongly recommend you have an attempt at it before watching this video and going through the answers. And as always, I'll include the grade boundaries for this individual paper so you can see what grade you would get once you've marked it. So let's get started on this June 2018 Higher Paper 2, which is a calculated paper. So looking at question 1, it says here is a circle and circle the word that describes the shaded part. Now for this, hopefully relatively quite simple, but it is the segment. For question 2, it says circle the number that is in standard form, and the correct answer is this. And the issues with the other numbers is that this needs to be a number between 1 and 10. And again, same applies for this one. And also that the power needs to be a whole number, which obviously that one isn't. So the correct answer is 6 times 10 to the power of 7. For question 3, this is a ratios to equations question. So here we've got y is 1.5 times the x. So if we convert this, that we've got 3 over 2y equals x. Then from this, if I make the number and get all the letters all on one side, I have 3 over 2 equals x over y. And once it's in this format, this therefore represents the ratio. So x to y is 3 to 2, which is our third option. In question 4, it says work out 40 as a percentage of 10. So that's 40 over 10, which equals 4 times that by 100, which equals 400%, which is our fourth option. Then moving on to question 5, it says match each sequence with its description. Now for this, it's just a case of knowing what an arithmetic progression is basically where the difference between all the numbers is the same. A geometric progression is where you're multiplying, or the difference between two consecutive numbers is the same ratio. So here, this is going to be a geometric progression. This is an arithmetic progression. And then in terms of the rest of them, 1, 3, 6, 10 are triangle numbers. 1, 4, 9, 16 are square numbers, and 1, 8, 27 are cube numbers. So the joining of the lines should look something like that. Then with question 6, it says the table shows information about the population of a city, and then it's got a claim by Liam who says from 2011 to 2021 the population of the city will increase by the same percentage as 2001 to 2011, and then he then works out each of those percentages. So the question is then asking, does the population of 540,000 match his claim? Show your working out. So for this, what we need to do is first of all work out the percentage change. So this question refers to percentage change. Now in that you've got the difference divided by the original multiplied by 100. So looking at the first claim, we've got 480,000 minus 4200, and then we divide that by the original amount, which in 2001 was 420,000. If we multiply that by 100, we get an answer of 14%. Then if we look at the next increase from 2011, so this time we're then going to do the difference between 4,800 and 540,000 minus 480,000, all divided by the original one, which was 480,000. Now if we times that by 100, we get a percentage of 12.5. So as you can see, as the percentages are different, does the population match his claim? The answer then is no, it doesn't. So for question 7, it says that on 3 days, Ali throws darts at a target. Here are his results. And the question says, work out the different estimates for the population of Ali hitting the target. Now for this, there's a several bunch of combinations you can have. We can have 15 over 20 as one. You can have 22 over 30. You can have 40 over 17. And you can also have 54. Again, I've got these numbers the wrong way around, so apologies. That one should be 17 over 40, and then we've got 90 over 54 rather. Again, just be careful because they always do these little tricks. 54 over 90, and then you can then work out what those decimal answers are going to be. And if I did that, then I find that the first one is going to be 0.75. And now remember that you only need two of these, 73. And if I do 14 divided by 40, that gives me 0.425. And then 54 divided by 90 equals 0.6. So any two of those, so any two of these would be fine. The next question then says, which of these two answers is the better estimate for the probability of Ali hitting the target? And basically you want to go for whichever out the two has a greater number of trials. And again, the reason for that is the more trials you use equals the more accurate answer. So something along those lines, and obviously depending on which one you've got. So out of these, this is probably the worst one, this is the second worst, this is the second best, that's the best one to use as your answer. But as long as out of the two values you've gone for whichever where the denominator is the greatest, that will be fine for that answer. Then moving on to question 8, it says that Theo starts with saving of £18, James starts with no savings. Each week from now, Theo will save £4.50 and James will save £4. And it says, in how many weeks will Theo and James have the saving in the ratio of 15 to 8. Now with 15 to 8, you need to recognize the numbers that in this. So we're looking for where the first number is a multiple of 15 and the second number is a multiple of 8. So if we start this off by writing Theo and James, and we've got the week number. So in week 0, so right at the start, Theo has got 18 and James has got 0. Then in week 1, it's going to be, Theo's amount is going to be increasing by £4.50, so that's going to be £22.50, and James is going to start saving £4. Then in week 2, we add 4.5, so that's going to be 27, and this is going to be 8. The next one's going to be 31.5, and that's going to be 12. Then it's going to be 36, and then 16. Then it's going to be 40.5, and then 20, and then 45 to 24. And there is the one that we are looking for. So after how many weeks? Well, it's going to be after 6 weeks. And again, what you want to do, if you're not sure about where that's come from, if you just do 15 to 8 and then just do the multiples of that, and what you want to then try and find is one where it matches, and that's where it does. So with question 9, it says the length of each side of a regular pentagon is 8.4 centimeters to one decimal place. Complete the error interval for the length of one side. So with it being to one decimal, so we've got 0.1 divided by 2, which is 0.05. So then what we then need to do is 8.4 plus or minus 0.05. And if we do that, we get 8.35 and 8.45. It then says complete the error interval for the perimeter. Well, the smallest it's going to be is using the smaller side. So that's going to be 8.35 times 5. And that gives me an answer of 41.75. And then if we then do the biggest, which is going to be 8.45 times 5, and I type that into my calculator and I get 42.25. Then moving on to question 10, it says that the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. It says the container is a hemisphere with a radius of 30. Sand fills the container at a rate of 4,000 centimeter cubes per minute. Does it take less than a quarter of an hour to fill the container? So what we need to do first is find the volume of the hemisphere. Now, although we've got the volume of a sphere, we need to divide that by 2. So that's going to be V equals 4/3 times pi times r cubed, all divided by 2. And we know that r equals 30. So if I type that all into my calculator, maybe using brackets, so I've got 4/3 times pi times 30 squared. all divided by 2, it gives me an answer of 18,000 pi. Now from this, what I then want to do is I then need to, and that's in centimetre cubed, I then need to work out what rate is it going to be. So it's going to be 18,000 pi divided by 4,000, and that equals 14.13 minutes. Now here it says that we've got quarter of an hour, and how many minutes are there in quarter of an hour? Well, that's going to be 15 minutes. So is this time less than 15 minutes? Yes. So the answer then is yes, as 14.13 minutes is less than 15 minutes. And something along those lines would be absolutely fine for the 3 marks. Then looking at question 11, it says 2 ordinary fair dice are rolled, complete the tree diagram. So this is going to be, if that's 1/3, this is going to be 2/3, that's going to be 2/3, that's going to be 1/3, and that's going to be 2/3. Nice easy mark for a question 11. The question then says work out the probability that both dice land on a number that's less than 3. So less than 3 is going to be these 2 probabilities here. So here I've got 1/3 times 1/3, which equals 1/9. Then moving on to question 11c, it says work out the probability that exactly one of the dice lands on the number less than 3. So either my first dice could be less than 3 and the second one isn't, or the second dice isn't, but the first dice isn't, but the second dice is. So I've got this calculation. So this then becomes 2/9 plus 2/9, which gives me an answer of 4/9. Then moving on to question 12, it says that a straight line is drawn on a centimetre grid. Faye assumes that the scale is 1 centimetre equals 1 unit. Use her assumption to work out the gradient of the line. So again, if 1 unit, I just label each of these. So 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8. Now, again, to work out the gradient, I always suggest that you pick 2 nice coordinates that lie on the line. So what I'm doing is picking 2 coordinates here. And what you want to do is that the gradient is equal to the distance, or the difference in the distance up divided by the distance across. Now remember that a gradient going up is positive and a gradient going down is negative. So from this, if I just draw a triangle like so, a right angle triangle, notes that's 2 and that's 4. So here the gradient is going to be 2/4, which equals a half. I can write a half there. Then for part B, it then says that in fact the scale is 1 centimetre represents 2 units. Which statement is true? Well, the correct answer you should have is that it's going to stay the same. Now, the reason for this, the only time the gradient will be affected is if the units change or the scale changes for one of the axes, or if it changes for both scales where the scale is not the same. So for one, the vertical axis could be going up in 2, and the second, the horizontal axis could be going up in 1, then that's where the gradient will be affected, or the size of the triangle will be affected in terms of its height and its base. Now for question 13, it says show that for when x is not equal to -4. Now the reason why they state this is only because you can't divide by 0. So that statement there is just to show that this algebraic fraction is going to be valid and that you're never going to be dividing by 0. So then what we then need to do is simplify this. So what we need to do first is factorize. So if I factorize the top, I can see a common factor is 8. So I've got 8x squared minus 1. And the common factor in the denominator is a 4, so I've got 4x plus 1. Now at this moment, the only thing I can simplify is the 8 and the 4. So I can cancel that and that becomes a 2, that becomes a 1. Now the next thing is that you should be able to spot that this is a difference of 2 squares. So looking at x squared, so what I've got is I've got 2, and then it's going to be x, 1, 1, 1's a plus, 1's a minus, and at the bottom I've got x plus 1. Now from this you should be able to spot that the x plus 1's cancel, leaving me with 2x minus 1, and then from this I've got 2x minus 2, and there is my final answer written in this form here. Then with question 14, it says the scale drawing represents a garden. Water from a sprinkler P reaches 20 meters from P. The water from sprinkler Q reaches up to 25 meters from Q. The scale is 1 centimeter, 5 meters. And it then says use a pair of compasses to show the region that water from both sprinklers reaches. So for this, what I need to do is get my compass, and I need to draw a circle, preferably not with a highlighter. So let's just get rid of that. If it's letting me to. There we go. And if I select a pen and draw a circle, and what you want to do is, for this first circle, you want a radius of 20 divided by 5, which is 4. So I just need to make this a little bit bigger so it hits the 4 across, which this isn't at the moment. And again, not the easiest to do on the computer. And let me just tinker with it slightly. So we should get something that looks like this, and again yours will be a whole lot accurate. So the radius of this should be 4 centimeters, and then I need to do another circle from Q, but this time it needs to have a radius of 5. And again, if I just make this and just kind of rig it so that it is, and that's 4, so we just need another centimeter, so like that. So this radius here is 5 centimeters, and then the region that we want is this middle bit here, and that's what we need to highlight. Then looking at question 15, it says that 100 men and 100 women took a test, and we've got using the data which statement must be true. And so the correct statement you should have is that men were more consistent scores than women. That's shown by their interquartile being smaller than the women's. And again, we can't comment on the first one because men had a higher average than women, which is not true because it's 28 against 30. Women had the highest score, and again haven't got that information. And men had the lowest score, and again we don't have that information. So that's why the second option is our right answer. Moving on to question 16, it says that some concrete has volume of 3.8 meter cubed, and it says the density of the concrete is 2,400 kilograms per a cubic meter. Work out the mass of the concrete. So in terms of here, density is mass over volume. So then using this formula, we see that mass equals D times V. So we know that it's going to be 3.8 multiplied by 2,400. Type that into my calculator and I get a weight or mass of 9,120. It then says that the 3.8 cubic meters of concrete is made into the shape of a cylinder. The base has a volume of 0.5 meters. Work out the height of the cylinder. So over here, the volume of a cylinder is pi or squared times h. So substitute the numbers that I know. I've got pi times 0.5 squared times h equals 3.8. Now if I put brackets around these two things here, which are just numbers, I can then take that over to the side. So h equals 3.8 divided by pi times 0.5 squared, and I just put that in brackets, and I get a h value of 4.84, and that's going to be to 2 decimal places. Then looking at question 17, it says that a ball is thrown vertically upwards. The graph shows the height of the ball above the ground after it is thrown. It says for how many seconds is the ball at the height of more than 2 meters. So here we're looking for 2 meters, which is here. And we're looking for how much time does the curve spend that's above that dashed line. And it's going to be for 3 seconds. So this is where it's above 2 meters. So it's 3 seconds. The next question then says, after how many seconds is the ball in instantaneous rest when it's in the air? So we're looking for this flat point here, and that is going to be at 1.5 seconds. Now the next question then says work out the average speed of the ball when it's moving downwards. So what we need to do here is we need to work out the gradient between from when it's at its highest to when it's at its lowest. So if I just call this point A and I mark down the points, which is 1.5 to 4.6, and this B value, which is at 3.5 and 0. So for part C, what I need to do is work out the gradient of AB. Now to work out the gradient, I'm just going to use the formula of y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So in other words, the difference in the vertical distance divided by the difference in the horizontal. So it's going to be 4.6 minus 0 over, and it's going to be 1.5 minus 3.5. And if I type that into my calculator, I'm going to get minus 2.3. But again, obviously I'm looking at average speed, although the speed is going down, so therefore it's going to be positive 2.3, and the units are already mentioned, which is meters per second. So there is my final answer for 17C, so it's going to be 2.3. The next question 18 says the solution of 3 to the power x equals 300 lies between two consecutive integers. Work out the two integers. So all I need to do here is just write down which power of x, which power of 3 rather, will take this over 300. So 3 cubed is 27, 3 to the power of 4 is 81, 3 to the power of 5 is 243, 3 to the power of 6 is 729, and there we've got our two integers, so it's between 5 and 6. Then moving on to question 19, it says that a pentagon is made from a square and an isosceles triangle, and the question says work out the perimeter of the pentagon. So what I need to do is I need to work out what this length here is. Now if you look closely, you will see that that is a right angle triangle, and this is what I'm trying to find. So if I just take that right angle triangle out, I can see that this base is going to be 6 because it's half. This angle here is 90 degrees, so this angle here is going to be 125 minus 90, which is 35, and this is the length that I'm wanting. So then using trigonometry, which is what you've hopefully spotted, this is h, this is going to be a, so I get cos of 35 equals 6 over x, so x equals 6 over cos 35, and so x equals 7.32 blah blah blah. So this length here is 7.32 blah blah blah, and this length here is 7.32 blah blah blah. And now if I keep that value in my calculator, we work out the probability is 7.32 blah blah plus 7.32 blah 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 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12, and that gives me a total answer of 50.6 centimeters, and that's to 1 decimal place. Then looking at question 20, it says that here is an inflated swimming ring with dimensions in centimeters, and then we've got this formula. It says work out the volume when A equals 20 and B equals 30, and it is 3 marks. So this, I'll be honest, is surprisingly really easy. All I've got to do is just substitute my A and B values into that formula. So V equals 0.25 times pi squared times, and it's going to be 30 take away 20 squared times 30 plus 20. Now if I simplify this, I've got V equals 0.25, I'm going to leave pi squared, 30 take away 20 is 10, so that's 10 squared, and 30 plus 20 is 50. So that's all I need to then type into my calculator, and if I do just that, I get an answer of 12337.0055. Now the question is asking me to round it to 3 sig fig. So 3 sig fig represents 100, so I want to round this number up to the nearest 100, so it's 12300. Then looking at question 21, it says Liz and Tia are walking towards a shop along different paths. The diagram shows their position at 2 p.m. Assume that they walk at the same speed. Who will arrive at the shop first? So if their speeds are the same, it's all about the distance of who walks the shorter distance. So what we need to do is work out the distance of Tia to the shop. Now if I just put an X there, we notice that if I just write Liz is distance, I can see that that's going to be 80 meters to the shop. So to work out Tia's, that's going to equal x, and that is going to be the cosine rule. So what I've got is I've got x squared equals, and then if I just label this as a, no, I don't, I'm going to label that as b. This is capital A, so that's going to be lower a, and this is going to be c. So I have 60 squared plus 80 squared minus bracket 2 times 80 times 60, should be the other way around, but who cares, times cos, and then it's 75. Actually, we do care, so let's just quickly put that in order. It won't make a difference to your answer, but let's not go around that. So I've put brackets around the 2 BC cos A just because, and then so we get x squared equals, and it's going to be 7515.33. Then if I square root that answer, I get an answer of 86.7 meters. So here, who travels furthest? The lowest. The answer is going to be Liz. And the reason for that is because she travels the shorter distance. It then says, in fact, Liz walks faster than Tia. How does this affect your answer? Well, it has absolutely zero change because she's still traveling the shortest amount. So if Liz is going faster, she's still going to beat Tia. For question 22, it says the circle centre O passes through 5, 0. What is the equation of the circle? And that's a dead easy one. So it's x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So if the radius is 5, then we're looking for 25. So the answer is our first one. Then looking at question 23, it says solids x and y are similar, and it says x has a volume of 64, y has a volume of 343. The surface area of x is 176. Work out the surface area of y. So looking at this, we've got that the volume scale factor is going to be 343 over 64. Now the volume scale factor is k cubed, and if I leave it as that, then what I find that the length scale factor, which is k, is going to be the cube root of 343 over 64. And I notice that those two numbers are cube numbers, so that then becomes 7 over 4. So therefore, the area scale factor, which is k squared, is going to be 7 squared over 4 squared, which is 49 over 16. Then from this, to work out what the surface area of y is, I've got 176 multiplied by 49 over 16 equals, and that gives me an answer of 539, and that's going to be centimetre squared. And there is my final answer. Then for question 24, it says the tank is a cuboid measuring 50 centimetres by 35 by 20. All lengths are the nearest centimetre. A container has the capacity of exactly 34 litres. 1 litre represents 1,000 centimetre cubed. And it says which has the greater capacity, the tank, container, or cannot tell. So let's have a look first at working out the maximum for the tank capacity. Now for this, what we need to do, again, if it's to the nearest centimetre, we do 1 centimetre divided by 2, so that's 0.5. So what I then need to do is 50 plus or minus 0.5. I've got 35 plus or minus 0.5, and I've got 20 plus or minus 0.5 for the upper. Now for the upper limits, all I need to do is add 0.5, so it's going to be 50.5 times 35.5 times 20.5, and if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 36751.375. I divide that by 1000 because I want it in litres, and that comes to a total of 36.75 litres. That's the maximum. So if I then want to work out the minimum tank capacity, I then do the lower bound, so it's going to be 49.5 times 34.5 times 19.5. I get an answer of 33301.125, and if I divide that by 1000, I get 33.3 litres. So as you can see, with the maximum, it's more than the container. If it's the lower, it's lower than the container. So the correct answer here is going to be that you cannot tell. For question 25, it says the Venn diagram shows some information about 150 students. And the question is saying that the probability that physics students chosen at random also studies chemistry is 5/12. One of the students of the 150 is chosen at random. Work out the probability that it does not that they do not study chemistry or physics. So for this, what we need to do is first of all find the values of x and y. Now, how do we do that? Well, we've just got to generate some equations. So looking at this, we know that 47 plus x plus 35 plus y should all add up to 150. So from this, what I can then do is simplify all of this, and I get xy equals 68. And what I'll do is I'm just put a little box around that. Now the next thing we know, and the information that's been given, is that the probability that a physics student studies also studies chemistry is 5/12. So how many physics students are there? Well, there are going to be x number of that study both over the total of physics, which is 35 plus x, and that all equals 5/12. Now if I put brackets around that denominator, I'm going to need to do a bit of cross multiplying. So here I've got 5 lots of x plus 35 equals 12x. Expand the brackets, I get 5x plus, and it's 175 equals 12x. I then solve this equation, so I've got 175 equals, it's going to be 7x, so x equals 25. So from this, I can cross that out and write 25 there. And then using this, I get 25 plus x, plus y rather, equals 68. So therefore, y equals 43. Now the question is then saying, work out the probability that they don't study chemistry or physics. Well, now that it's 43, so it's going to be 43 over the total, which is 150, and that cannot be simplified, so there is my final answer. Then for question 26, it says that the curve has the equation of y equals 4x squared plus 5x plus 3. It says that we've got a line of y equals x plus 2, show that the curve and the line have exactly 1 point of intersection, and we can't plot it. So what we need to do first is notice that both equations are both equal to y. So to find the intersection point, I make the two equations equal to each other. So here I've got 4x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals x plus 2. And then this slowly starts to resemble a quadratic equation. So if I take all of this over to the side, I end up with 4x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Now what I then want to do is then solve. So you can either solve by factorizing, in which if you do, you're going to get 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1 equals 0. And then from this, you should be able to spot that you've got, that's 2x squared equals 0. Then I can then go on and solve this. So 2x plus 1 equals 0. 2x equals minus 1. So x equals minus a half. And as you can see, you've only got one solution. So therefore, only one intersection point. Now, if you can't factorize it, can use the quadratic formula to solve. And if you do that, A is going to equal 4, B is going to equal 4, and C is going to equal minus 1. And what you'll end up with is basically, when you do the substitution, you'll end up with minus 4 plus minus the square root of 0 over 8, and obviously the square root of 0 is just 0, so it's just nothing, so it's just minus 4 over 8, which equals minus a half, and again there's only one solution, so therefore there's only one intersection point. There are other methods you can use, but again, slowly going to that, I would say that's pretty much all that is expected. You'll come to the same conclusion in either method you choose. Then for question 27, it says prove algebraically that 2.75 recurring converts to this fraction. So what we need to do first is make it equal to x. And then what we then need to do is multiply both sides by 10, so I get 27.5 recurring. Then multiply it by 100, so I get 100x equals 275.5 recurring. Then using these, I've got 100x equals 275.5 recurring, 10x equals 27.5 recurring. If I take the two things away, I end up with 90x equals 275, take away 27, which is 248. So x equals 248 divided by 90, which simplifies to be 124 over 45, which is what they've wanted me to show. Then moving on to question 28, it says here we've got functions, and it says simplify f of 2x plus g of x minus 4. So here what I need to do is I need to substitute 2x wherever I see an x in f of x. So I've got 5 minus 2x plus, now here I'm going to, wherever I've got an x, I'm going to swap that with whatever's in the brackets. So I've got 3 and then x minus 1 plus 7. Then I just need to neaten this up, so I've got 5 minus 2x plus 3x minus 3 plus 7, and if I neaten all of that up, I end up with x plus 9. The next question then says solve the inverse function of g equals 2x. We're looking at the inverse function of gx, and again if you go through, if I just write what gx is, 3x plus 7, so we make it equal to y, and then we want to make x the subject. So I've got y minus 7 equals 3x. So y minus 7 over 3 equals x. So the inverse function of x is going to be x minus 7 over 3. So it should be g, not f there. So then from this, what we can then do is we've got x minus 7 over 3 equals 2x. And then I just need to go on and solve this. So I've got x minus 7 equals 6x, minus 7 equals 5x, and then minus 7 over 5 equals x. And there is my final answer. So x equals minus 7 over 5. And that concludes the end of this paper. Now we'll put, once you've marked the paper, if you tally it with scores, I'll put the grade boundaries for this individual paper in the description below so you can see what mark you've got from this paper.